It's so cool. It's adorable. Please go to Nevin.
Hey folks, it's William Westhopper, and we're here at Maryland Public Television in Owings Mills, Maryland, to look at some great cars, and also to get a first look at a new independent documentary called The Last Independent Automaker, a story about American Motors Corporation. So please join us.
I want to list off some of the people to thank. But I think, obviously, this has been a really cool and exciting project. As you know, The Last Independent Automaker is going to be a 6-part documentary series of half-hour episodes that cover the history of American Motors Corporation. That was a car company that from 1954 to 1987 built around 12 million vehicles, and at its peak employed over 20,000 people. And to date, there has been no comprehensive documentary on this subject. Are used to people referring to AMC as little or tiny or struggling or whatever, but I think that's only because at one point its competitors were the biggest companies in the world. At one point, General Motors was the biggest company in the world, so of course anything's going to look small. As we've learned doing this documentary, AMC was anything but small. It was a big company. And so I think it's funny to kind of rewind. I spent a lot of time this week thinking about the genesis of this project. I moved from Pittsburgh to Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania so I could come work at MPT. And I was in the basement of this strange house reading a book by Pat Foster, our co-producer. And I had a thing where I just stopped for a second and was like, I should make a documentary about AMC. And then I picked up my phone and I texted my friend Jim Needle and I said, hey, do you want to join me to make a documentary about American Motors? And he was foolish enough to say yes. And that was 10 years ago. That was the summer of 2015 that happened. Over the course of the next couple of years, I got in touch with Jim, I got in touch with Pat. We started putting together an idea of what this could be. And Pat is an incredible automotive historian who's written, would you say it's up to 35 books now? Books on different automotive companies, histories, all that kind of thing, several of which are about American Motors. You'll notice on the brown car over there, I have one of his books laid out on the hood. And so I knew that with Jim to help me on the technical side of things and Pat to help me on the history side of things, we could make something really great. In a way, I think the timing may have been perfect because you look at how different 2015 was from now. We were starting out to make a documentary about an industry that went through a massive transition as government regulations for air pollution and safety changed the way we built cars. A story that had to do with massive layoffs due to automation, robotics, and globalization, cheap overseas labor. And a story that had to do with economic strife from massive inflation and spiking interest rates. All this stuff nobody was thinking about in 2015, and it's like, we predicted the future, which I can take no credit for. I think the more important thing is it just shows how all of this history is still relevant today. We didn't set out to make something that was this timely, but watching the news, it's like, yeah, the auto industry is going through the same thing. There's lessons we can learn from this. And so to tell this story, we spent 7 years collecting over 50 interviews with former employees, everyone from guys who worked on the assembly line to 2 former CEOs. We've digitized over 100 hours of vintage film and videotape. Over 100 hours. And a huge thanks to people who've provided those tapes and films to us, who trust us to include that. Huge thanks to Pat, who has devoted the last 50 years of his life to collecting these photos and reports and documents and rare things that exist nowhere else on earth. He is saved. And all told, it is almost 28 terabytes of footage. So if you work in the TV industry, that's a lot of material. I think of the man who immigrated to the United States from Poland after World War II and couldn't even speak English and got a job on the assembly line when he was 17 years old. A man who'd never been in a factory before in his life is suddenly putting bumpers on cars and is able to build a life out of this and build a family, buy a home, all because of this job. He was 95 years old when we interviewed him, and he trusted us with those memories. I think of the former CEOs who told us things that now that 30 years have passed, they were able to be candid with us and talk about what it was really like working at these companies without the filter of a PR person and a press team. They were just talking like they would to a friend. I think of the extra effort we put in to find women and people of color, to let them tell their stories as part of the auto industry too. And some of the surprising answers we found and how much they loved their work and some of the great things they got to be part of. And that stuck out to me, that when we were doing this project, that it wasn't just about the cars, that people were trusting us with their memories. But I think the best example of trust comes from, in December of 2022, I got a call from a man in Detroit. His name was Sandy Baru. And he said, "You really need to come to Detroit and interview my neighbor, Bill Chapin. He is the son of Roy Chapin Jr., who was a CEO of American Motors." And it's the middle of winter, the last thing I want to do is drive to Detroit. And I kind of was like, yeah, we really should interview him. Can we maybe arrange something in the summer? I'll be back out there. And he said, no, you need to come now. And so I packed up my stuff and I went out. And Sandy, who has no personal connection to AMC, was kind enough to let us use his house and set up all of our equipment for this interview. And Sandy explained to me that his neighbor, who was only in his 70s, was suffering from early onset dementia. Bill Chapin turned out to be an incredible person. You'll see in the episode we showed today, incredible interview. And it was amazing and heartbreaking that he could not remember why we were interviewing him. He could not remember. He kept asking me, why are you asking me all these questions? But as soon as I asked him something about his time at American Motors and about his dad's work, it was like dropping a needle into a groove on a record. He would just light up. He'd go, oh, I remember my dad would bring this car home from work and I got to drive in it. And when I was a teenager, I'd go and look at I'd talk to the designers and tell them like, oh, I'm gonna tell my dad he needs to build that car and those kind of things. And I think what a better example of somebody trusting us with their memories than that. How blessed we were to be able to save that and preserve it in a program like this that people will be able to see for years now. And it was just a reminder that what I had known from the beginning, that this story is not just about the cars. It's a story that matters. It's a story of people's lives and livelihoods. It's a story that nobody else was telling. And as Pat said when we interviewed Pat, the auto industry is perhaps more than any other industry has shaped America. Think of America, you think of cars. And I can't think of a better place to tell this story than on public television. I cannot thank all of you and all the other people who couldn't be here today who made this possible. We have had people who have been generous beyond anything we deserved. People who have shared photographs, people who have let us film their cars. I think first off, the AMC Owners Club, the American Motors Owners Association, and then all the local chapters have supported us throughout this, letting us come to their shows, letting us piggyback off of their events. I think of all of the AMC owners who are here today, people who let us film their cars, who took time out of their days for, let us film the cars that we needed for this project. Obviously, huge thanks to my two co-producers, Jim, who has been, the artistic and the technical side of this. Every time I have a question, does this look right? Should we do it this way? Jim has been fantastic, supplied a lot of the equipment we used. Pat, of course, who let me rifle through all of your photographs, who I send things to. Pat, can you get me the number of cars they sold in 1973? And I need calendar year, not production year. And he's like, oh yeah, let me check my records. I have it somewhere. I can't think of better people to help me with a project like that. My quality control team, Chad, Ben, Derek, and others who I send the episodes to fact check stuff. Josh Greenplate is on that list too. It's always, is this accurate? Does that make sense? It's like, well, technically that didn't come out till the fall, so no, you need it. So those kinds of things, huge thanks to them. Matt Steck, who is not here, but helped me digitize a lot of those tapes. I think the last time we counted, Jim, we did like 5 different formats of tapes. We had like VHS, Betamax, U-Matic, EIAJ, and even a few laser discs. All just to get this material that is gonna be lost to time if nobody saves it. A huge thanks to the former president of the UAW chapter Local 72 in Kenosha, John Drew, who has really provided a lot of great information. You'll see him in this episode, a very even-handed analysis of labor history in Kenosha. Vince Geraci, who's perhaps the greatest living AMC designer of all time. He is just the kindest gentleman in the world and a great friend of Pat and mine and Vince. I can't thank Vince enough. You'll see him in future episodes. He doesn't make it into this one. Other car friends along the way, Brian and Nick of Regular Car Reviews, who's let me be on their podcast, who actually voiced a clip that you're going to see today. You know, great friends who have believed in this project. My other friend, Brian, who's here, other Brian, who helped with the formation of our LLC. The Kenosha History Center in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which has let us go through their archives and supplied films and photos and lots of great history that they preserve there. The Automotive Hall of Fame, which is an organization in Dearborn that helped us apply for grants that were only eligible for Michigan-only organizations. So we were able to get some funding through there. And speaking of funding, a huge thanks to Visit Detroit, who's our big sponsor. Also the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, which we just got a grant from, and Motor Cities National Heritage Area, all of whom this project would not be possible without their financial support, as well as the over 375 individual donors who have contributed to this project. Everyone from people who've given us a couple bucks to a couple $1,000. It is life-changing that has allowed us to complete this project. So a huge thanks to everyone who has donated. And here my thank you list goes on to the folks at MPT, Mike English for being the one to suggest that I pitch this to MPT for distribution. Huge thanks to Mike, to Chrissy, Stewart, and Kate in programming and acquisitions who believed in this project, who agreed to distribute this project, and who have answered my countless questions throughout the process. Michelle Alexander, who's helped with the fundraising side of things and corporate sponsorships and corralling all of that and clearing all the legal stuff we need to do. Huge thanks to Talo and Marion in the grants department for helping us apply for the Alfred P. Sloan grant and other grants. Thanks to Joe Campbell and Stephen Reale, who've worked on the promos and promotion and the Funder Pod. Philip Guthrie for getting almost 300 stations nationally to agree to air this. Maybe it might be over 300 by now. There are a couple where we're on the fence that he's going to help us convince. But over 300 stations around the country will air this program. So, one of which those stations includes Detroit Public Television. Huge thanks to them. They've been going to bat for us with this project and helping us get it off the ground. And of course, thanks to Kristen and Jesse for executing today's incredible event. I can't wait for you guys to see the car cookies after the show. But thank you to them. They've run a great event here at MPT. And of course, a huge thanks to the Motor Week staff, the entire Motor Week staff. Ben Davis, who helped digitize some of the footage we used for Motor Week and who's been enthusiastic about this project from the beginning. Greg Carlos, who we just filmed a segment with as a little cross-promotional thing. Jessica Ray, who got me on the Motor Week podcast to shill for this project. And John Davis, who let me come on it. Brian Roberts and Dave Scrivener, who've helped with letting me use footage and clearing things and connecting me with people. And of course, a huge thanks to John Davis, who believed in this project. And it's a little wild when your brand new editor steps in and says, oh yeah, by the way, I'm doing a project about AMC history. And he took it seriously. He didn't laugh me out of the building. And I'm proud to say that John is one of our earliest advocates for this program, and I'm excited that you will get to see him in the series as well. His interview appears in some of the later episodes. And lastly, thanks to Stephen Shupak, who also has believed in this program from the beginning and has really helped us with some of the distribution stuff and some of the other hurdles we've had to clear. And if there's anybody at MPT I forgot, please know that I thank all of you for all of your support and encouragement and just checking in to ask how we're doing. And of course, lastly, I have to thank my family, my brother Rich and his wife, Ashley. A huge thanks to Rich for reading all of my scripts and giving me feedback when things don't make sense. Huge thanks to Mom and Dad for providing business advice and helping with the sort of clerical and management side of things. A huge thanks to my in-laws Jeff and Sue for being supporters throughout this project and helping us out, taking us out to lunch when we've had a stressful week. It means a lot. And if there's anybody who is the real MVP, it is my wife, Laura, who has, she deserves the applause more than me. who, as I reminded her, I've been working on this project longer than we've been married, which is crazy. But she has been the #1 biggest supporter. Whatever I need, she has been there, whether it's encouragement or a kick in the butt. She has been there to help make it happen. And I really cannot thank her enough for trusting me with this project. If anybody has had to have faith, it's been her. And she has really been the #1 supporter. So I cannot thank her enough. She is truly incredible, and I love you so much. So thanks to everyone. With that, I'd like to show you episode 1 of our 6-part series. Just a little bit of an overview. This is talking about what happened in the US car market after World War II. So that kind of sets the stage. It's the late 40s. The war is just finished, and so the US is going into a very interesting and different time than what it was like before the war, and that affected the automotive market. So our series of 6 episodes each cover different time periods, so it will take us, we're only watching one today, but the entire series will take us from the late 40s into the late 1980s. And here's how you can watch the other ones. It will be broadcast on public television stations around the country. Each station picks the time and day, so check your local listings. It'll also be available on the PBS streaming app. So if you have an iPad, an iPhone, smart TV, whatever, you can watch it on there. And after a 3-week delay, it will also be available on YouTube on our channel called Auto Moments. Now, if you live in the area here, MPT will be broadcasting it starting Saturday, May 10th, and it's on the little triangles on the tables there, but it's a weekly release starting Saturday, May 10th, and I believe it's at 5:30, is that correct? 5:30. So, but be sure and tune in, because before that at 5, it's Motor Week, so you want to watch both. So, but anyways, huge thanks to everybody. Thank you for coming out. I really hope you enjoy the show. It means so much to me that you're here. So you guys are great. Thank you so much. She deserves the applause more than me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Q for Cars, as we took a look at the Last Independent Automaker, AMC, that's going to be live on public broadcasting this summer. Until next time.
These go to 11. What if you made 10 but these
I was able to get that in one of my last YouTube videos.
I hope you can make it. Yeah,
That was so cool. Yeah. I have a